You're done with Imaginary Scramble's main story, so what comes next? Well, you're placed into a final explorable map, the Abyss. Unlike the other maps, this one doesn't have any monster parts in the treasure chests. However, you get some niceties in return. You've got Lost Belt 5 materials scattered around, and the best free quests are in this zone. However, you need to unlock them first. To complete the epilogue story, you need to fight a number of foreigner bosses. These are scattered in each of the corners, your starting point aside, and dead center on the map. So as a general strategy, I'd recommend using Melt to crisscross to the center and then the various corners, then using Oki to clean up missing chunks. Depending on how you do it, you can clear sectors with repeated melt chains, though it's messy and you'll likely need to do a cleanup sweep later on. There are bright red nodes in this area and you'll run into a few on the way to the foreigners. You have every relevant assist at this point, so just use what's recommended. I'll note that unlike a lot of other bright red nodes, the one due north, the one that asks for Zhang Yu, is a 3 enemy encounter, so plan accordingly. Around the center of the map, you'll encounter the Seahorse node, which is the MHXX fight. It's got 2 trash waves going into a boss fight, probably my least favorite encounter, and you better get used to seeing it. Once you get to the final wave, you'll see a coin, a wolf, and a pervert. Among other things, the coin taunts itself and has a chance to stun MHXX every turn, and the wolf will heal her each turn. A number of conditions will make MHXX gain various crit buffs, the dog dying, the coin dying, and her bar breaking. On top of this, her bar break turns your party into foreigners, so they'll take extra damage from her. You have to kill the coin enemy, and doing the previous ways will encourage bringing an AoE servant anyway, so it's a face race. Stun spam from someone like Van Gogh can buy you a bit of time, though MHXX can one-shot her as the fight goes on. On top of this, she has a 1-turn invuln she can spam, so you may want to consider a reserve attacker who can deal with that. For these foreigner fights, I found that Alter Ego Kiara does fairly well in general if you happen to have her. In the northeast corner of the map is the Octopus node. Here you'll encounter Hokusai. She'll buff the other enemies with various on-death effects. Hokusai will reduce your arts resistance and increase your arts performance every time she hits you, and on break, she gets 4 small guts and enmity-based arts performance. The Skeleton King buffs the shit out of every enemy, and the Torturer will taunt one of your teammates as a part of their normal skills. On top of this, the Skeleton King will mark its killer for death 4 turns later, so be careful with your AoEs. If you have one, an AoE alter ego will be pretty well positioned to pop Hokusai and the Torturer while keeping the Skeleton King alive longer. It's also a good time to mention that you can use ally supports for these fights, so don't be afraid to leverage them if you're stuck. The crayon drawings in the southwest corner will pit you against Summer Abigail. It's a 3-3-3 layout, with 2 of those being mostly bronze trash. I only mention this because if you happen to have Nitocris, you can engineer an easy fast clear through that part. As for the bad girl herself, you're encouraged not to kill the 2 enemies next to her since they purge certain buffs and apply debuffs. Try to save them for after Abby is dealt with. For her part, she puts your servants to sleep on break, and at least on my run, she loved to spam her normal sleep on my main attacker, so if you bring some form of disruption or debuff immunity, you'll get mileage out of it. After defeating the others, you can venture into the northwest corner and fight Yang Guifei. It's a 3-3-3 encounter, and to make your life extra miserable, Yang has 3 health bars. She passively burns anyone who attacks her and applies burns on hit. On first break, she reduces the attack of the servant who broke the bar, not the last person who hit her. Found that out the hard way. It seems to be a very substantial effect, and there aren't very good ways of playing around it without making the first 2 waves take 50 years, so bring a good reserve attacker. On second break, Yang gains full NP and applies a number of nasty debuffs, mostly related to burns. If you're in need of ideas, it's worth noting Summer BB is completely burn immune. If you can find one, you could try and grind her out. Once you finish this, you're done with the epilogue story, and your last major hurdle is unlocking the challenge quest. It opens at 290,000 points. To reach this amount, you'll need to find everything of importance and explore most parts of the maps. Not every tile, but most of them. So focus on getting areas with large blank spots. If you run into trouble getting monster parts, there is a solution. Defeating the foreigner bosses unlocks the final 3 free quests. These are pretty tough if your account isn't hulked out. That said, they do drop a lot of crap to compensate for them being very unfriendly to min-maxing event bonuses. First is Battleship, a 2-1-2 Archer Zerk node. I used a Rosh and a Lancer Melt with Imaginary Element and Like a Bird respectively. It drops the Oki combo, so I'd focus on this during the map clearing stage to make your life less miserable. Dreadnought is a 1-1-3 Zerk caster node. A Rosh and the Da Vinci Rider worked for me, though I'll note the damage range is a bit rough for a Rosh, so get ready to adjust your Castoria attack buff timing. If you have one set up for that really annoying free quest back in Las Vegas summer, your Da Vinci Rider should be in decent shape for this one, otherwise get ready for some pain. It drops the Raiko combo. Super Dreadnought is a 1-2-1 Berserker node, and it's a tremendous pain. I spent a while trying to get this shitty Nemo team to do it, but don't worry about that. I ended up using a Lancer Melt team with a Rosh. Yeah, again. But you should be able to gong it as well. Maybe bring a Rosh along to save some charge on wave 1, if you're gonna do that. This node drops the Melt combo. If these are out of range, the multi-drop nodes from map 4 should be an okay alternative, so don't hesitate to use them if the Abyss nodes are driving you nuts. Once you have the challenge quest unlocked, get ready for a twist on the old challenge quest formula. The first fight is just a warm-up. Take out Gilles or else he'll resummon trash mobs. Once you get to battle 2, the real fight starts. Gilles has some kind of Jean barrier where he takes pretty much no damage as long as there's a Jean face on the field, and he'll summon more every time you break his bars. The first ones up are Jarcher and Jerker. You can blow them away with an AoE, but they have on-death effects. All the Jeans do. Jarcher guts your NP gain for a few turns, while Jerker makes Gilles do more damage. He's a bit of a potato though, so I wouldn't worry about that part. You'll notice, however, that Gilles doesn't lose his barrier until he starts his turn. This means you can't kill the Jeans and break his barrier with follow-up cards on the same turn. If you aren't big dick, my recommendation would be to slow play Gilles between the Jeans dying and breaking his bar. This will let you deal with the various death effects, assuming you're running a highly defensive team. On first break, Gilles will summon Jailter and Lakshmi Bai. The former tanks your attack stat on death, while the latter debuffs your star generation. On second break, he brings out Jalter and Original Recipes Jean. Both have their own break bars and a substantial amount of health. On summon, Jean will suck your charge bar by 50%, so plan accordingly. On break, Jalter buffs up, while Jean gives the enemy party invuln among other things. On death, Jalter reams you for a substantial if short-lived curse, so if you have any party members below 3k health, you may want to watch out. Jean on the other hand gives full NP to one of her allies, which, at this point, is probably Gilles. So prepare defensives on the turn you bake that potato. I didn't see this on my run, but apparently Jalter can put a taunt on Gilles. Given his massive damage reduction, that's probably going to cause you a lot of problems, so I'd recommend destroying Jalter as quickly as possible. Otherwise, just make sure your main attacker has an AoE Noble Phantasm. I used the Zersashi team to do this fight without much of a problem, but the actual damage coming your way seems fairly low until you fight Jalter. As long as you prepare some burst for her, you should be able to take things quite slow with a borrowed Merlin or Castoria to anchor your team. Otherwise, I'd avoid tunneling on a rider pick. Gilles himself is a fairly small threat, so picking someone that can fight off the various Jeans is far more important. With all that said, I'll be rolling for my very first Morgan on stream today. Wait, is she still good? I haven't checked in a few minutes. But if you're in the neighborhood, stop on by at twitch.tv/Finotaisen. Like and sub if you found this video useful, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.